Boom. Particular mushroom.
Hello everyone, this is Particular Mushroom, and the release of FrogLord version 1.0 is nigh. And so today I am creating a quick tutorial on how to create a level from scratch using FrogLord and Blender on version 1.0. This tutorial is going to assume that you already have FrogLord up and running, i.e. you can see the screen here. You have the Frogger extracted as specified here. And then you just go to browse and you're going to pick the MWD file and the application file. And then you're just going to go ahead and click load. The map we are going to be editing today is Volcano 1 or Scorching Switches. The reason why I suggest this as a map to edit is because the mechanical theming fits great for a rudimentary map, because jagged edges are just part of factories and that sort of thing. If I open the original map, you can see here, most of these platforms are just standard shapes. And so it's not going to be too difficult to make a convincing Volcano 1 level. In addition, lava, all we have to do is just flood the entire level with lava, and then we can elevate our platforms wherever we want. And it should be pretty easy to make a convincing looking level for this map here. I guess a good way to expound upon that is to say open the Sky 1 map. See how the clouds here are curved and they're kind of bubbly and bouncy and fun because they're clouds. With Volcano 1, we don't have to worry about that very much. We can just use jagged edges everywhere and it's not really much of a problem. Okay, so first thing we need to do is we need to clear this map. This is what you're going to want to do if you're creating from scratch in Blender. You can just export the file and edit the pre-existing map if that is the kind of thing that you're interested in. But for this tutorial, we really want to try and get you running with a completely blank slate. So we're going to go ahead, click this clear map here, and we can give it whatever we want. Frogger's limitations are mostly with the number of polygons. So you can make the map 100 by 100, that's fine, but the more complicated the geometry gets, the harder it's going to be for the game to render it accurately. Let's go with a 40 by 40. And click OK. And there we can see now the map is cleared. If we open this map again, we can now see that is just a flat plane with a 4540 grid, and we're going to go ahead and export this and edit it. All right, so I'm going to export the FFS for Frogger's sake. Okay, so you can see here, this is where the original MWD file is that we're currently using. This is where the edited MWD file is going to go once we finish our edits. And then this is the Volcano 1 map, Scorching Switches. It's good to put your map in its own folder because it's going to export a whole bunch of stuff, the FFS file, but also all the textures as well. So we're going to select Scorching Switches. There we can see that we exported to Scorching Switches, and now we're done with FrogLord for now. We can switch over to Blender. Okay, actually looks like I exported the wrong map, so I'm just going to click on Volcano 1 again and export the real one this time. Okay, there we go. Got the right one this time. Before we begin, I would like to mention that I will have the documentation for the Blender Frogger map creation in the description of the video, so you can use this to follow along or to reference when you go ahead and create your own maps. Okay, so whenever you export the Frogger map file, it's going to include with the export the current version of the Blender plugin. Now you can use this as a standard Blender plugin in the plugin menu. For today, I want to just use it as a script. So I'm going to open this in the scripting tab, and then I'm just going to hit this play button. Now it's going to run that script, and now we have the map importer and exporter in Blender. So we're going to go over to File, and we're going to import Frogger map. We are going to go to our Scorching Switches file, and we are going to import Volcano 1. There we go. Go back to the Modeling tab here. Okay, and when you switch to Material Preview over here, you're going to see all those colors that were exported with the original map. And if you don't want these colors visible while you are editing the map, you can go to Sculpting and then Vertex Paint. And what that will allow you to do is change the shading for the map. Frogger has two types of lighting. You have the baked lighting on the polygons, and then you have the lighting on the entities. And we'll go over the entities later. But for now, I want to revert the vertex colors, so there is no shading, and all that shows up is whatever is in the textures. So to do this, we're going to go into the top left corner, change the white color so that the value is 0.5. And this is just how shading works. If you have more than 0.5, then it's going to add color value to the textures. And if you have less than 0.5, it's going to remove color value from the texture. So we'll change this back to 0.5, and then we're going to increase the radius on our brush, and then just completely cover this. And it looks a little dark right now, but once we add textures to the map, you'll see that the color is perfectly neutral. So let's go back to the modeling tab. Now we've got our flat plane here showing. I'm going to delete the default cube, rite of passage for any Blender file. And now the first thing I want to do is fill our entire plane with lava. So I'm going to switch to edit mode. I'm going to go down here to the material tab. I'm going to find a texture that matches well. I think I like 227. I'm going to click assign. And it doesn't really look like anything right now, so we're going to click U and then reset to reset the UV mapping, and there we go. Now our entire map is filled with lava. So while FrogLord still relies on Blender, we're not going to be able to see the entities in this map. That's things like the baby frogs, moving platforms, and buttons. But we can do all the rest of the geometry in Blender. And so it's helpful in that case to have maybe some sort of sketch and a little sketchbook to see what you want and where you want those platforms and other entities to go, because you won't be able to do that in Blender. For this quick map we're going to make, there aren't really any hostile entities. It's mostly just platforms and scorching switches. So all we really have to do is make sure that whenever we make platforming, we leave a one space gap for those entities to roam around in. So first, let's go ahead and create the starting space. I want this to be a mostly go north map. So we're going to start a little bit down here. Maybe somewhere like this is good. I got to switch to face select, so that way I can select the entire faces. It's a little easier than selecting individual vertices. Let's make it a big platform here. And so to rise a platform out of the lava, our best friend is going to be the extrude region tool. So I'm going to go ahead and select that. I get this little extrusion handler here. And now an important thing to do also is going to be to press N, and that's going to show our transform, the X, Y, and Z axis. And particularly when rising our platform out of the lava, the Z axis is going to be important because the spiky platforms in Scorching Switches are pretty tall. And so to comfortably have enough room for those entities to occupy, we're going to want a Z-axis of 50 for the top of our platform. So now that we've got these selected, I'm going to go ahead and grab this. I'm going to pull it up. I'm going to hold Control so we snap to integer values, and I'm going to stop at 25. Now I know that's not 50, but we're going to create another region all the way to 50. And the reason we're doing that is because of the textures. So now that we've done that, I go to our select tool, and I'm going to switch to the X-ray vision. So that way we can select our polygons through each other. We're not limited to just the ones we can see. And so then what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit this Y viewport. And that's going to allow us to select just the bottom polygons that we raised out here. I'm going to go to material, and I'm going to scroll down until I find the material. Maybe I should bring this out. I don't know if I can make these bigger, but it's fine. This one, 664. If you can see, it's very hard. There's a little bit of lava at the bottom of this. So this is the one we want to use for the bottom of the platform. We're going to assign. And again, it's going to look weird until we reset the UVs. And then there we go. Now we've got these little platform legs sticking out with lava at the bottom. And we're going to switch back to this Y viewport again, select these. And these, we are a little bit more flexible. There are a lot more sidings we can do. I'm just going to go ahead and do 665 for now. Again, it's going to look weird until I hit U and then reset. And then finally, for the top of our platform here, I'm going to select those, although I selected one back here, so maybe I'll switch to the Z viewport. And then I'm going to do, I think 210 is good for that, yeah. And there you go. There we have our starting platform. And if you want, you can add some flourishes. Maybe for this one, I'll make it this texture. And for this one, I'll use this one so that we can make it look a little bit different, change up the visuals. And if we want to rotate one of these platforms, we can switch to UV editing, which is going to reset our view, unfortunately. So we got to crawl all the way back over here, turn on this so we can see them. And I want this. I'm going to click over here, press A, and then rotate this. I want that. There we go. Go back to modeling. And now there's one other thing we need to do is we need to designate our start space. You don't need to do this, but Frogger pretty much always starts on this little target platform. So we're going to do that as well. There we go. We've got our basic starting platform, and now we can move up and start adding obstacles and baby frogs here. So let's go ahead and do that. Now, again, we can't edit entities inside the Blender file, but we can just kind of assume maybe I want a platform that's going across like this. And so I just need to leave a lava gap here and just make some platforms and things over here. So we can extrude more than one platform at the same time. So let's just start picking things here. Let's do this. Maybe we have a couple of options for ways to go. Let's do this. Just going to start selecting faces here. Okay, so we've got a bunch of faces selected that we're going to turn into platforms, and we're just going to do the same thing. So click the extrude, grab this, hold Control to get to 25. And we're going to do the same thing at 50. And we're just going to do the same thing. We're going to turn these into believable platforms. We can start with this. And then we're going to go ahead. I'm going to hit the X this time. Turn back X-ray. Select these. Go down to 664 again. Assign. Select these. 665. And I got to reset that. There we go. And there you go. Look at all these platforms we have now we can make into challenges. So that's very cool. All right, now let's try and add a little bit more of a complex platform. So if you know from Scorching Switches, those spinny platforms always go around a little like hexagon thing. So we can try and make something like that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a cube. There we go. It's going to show up at our cursor, this little red-white thing. We're going to scale it up. And it's going to take a little bit, make sure it's right exact scale. It's not exactly at 0, 0. I wonder if I can maybe do that. Well, 0 is on the line here, so we want it at like 8. Okay, make it exactly at -8 and 40. And then I'm going to hit the Z and go over here. So now we can see exactly when it's going to be the right size. And it's still actually not exact. Why is it? You know, yes, I guess I will mention real quick is that I'm not very much a Blender expert. And Frogger is pretty good for relative beginners because the geometry is pretty simple and you don't have to make complicated 1,000 polygon edits to geometry. In fact, if you made something with thousands of polygons in it, it would probably crash the game. And so I find for a relative beginner like me, it's a good jumping off point for learning some of the things about Blender. And one thing you got to worry about with Frogger is the collision grid. Hold on, actually, let me see. Every space that Frogger jumps in is a 16 by 16 polygon. And so you don't want to mess up that collision grid. You want all the spaces that Frogger jumps on to be as close to a 16 by 16 as possible. Now we can bend that a little bit, but the big thing is we don't want this cube right here. Like that's a no-go. That's going to cause problems. The cube can be a little bit of different size. We could make this cube smaller. We could make it bigger. But we just don't want it to really be colliding with too many of the collision grid faces here. All right, so I got the cube at a pretty good size here. So now I'm going to go out of the top-down view and pull it up a bit for our edits. I'm going to assign it to this texture 298. That one is used for those little middle platforms. And we're going to go ahead and reset. Now, one thing you can do if you just want to focus on editing this, you don't really want to deal with, selecting things that you shouldn't be selecting, you can go ahead and select all of these and press H to hide them. That's really useful. So that way we can just focus on this cube here. So I'm going to go ahead, select this entire cube again. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Edge. I'm going to subdivide the edges. So now we have a subdivided cube here. And it was important that I assigned the metal texture before subdividing, because if I assign this texture now and then reset, it's going to make all these little boxes, and we don't want that. We want the big box. And so then what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch to vertex mode, switch to top down, and I'm only going to select these corners. I'm going to hold shift while I do this. So now we have the corners of our cube, and I am going to resize the corners of our cube. And to make it so hold on, let me show this view. To make it so it doesn't expand upward, I'm going to press Shift Z. I'm going to press Shift Z so that we're only expanding on the X and Y axes. And I'm going to shrink this like so. But we're not done yet, because now our texture at the top here looks a bit strange. So we're going to switch back to face. We're going to go back to UV editing, and we're going to select our UV texture, and we're going to hit, U? And we're going to hit cube prediction. What that's going to do is it's going to flatten that out. So now it still looks like everything is straight again. I guess maybe you could have selected this material, did this, hit U, and then if I hit U and do cube, it will go back. So I guess I didn't need to do that in that order, but anyway, it's fine. So now we have a little floating platform, but it's missing one more thing. We want to add a little gear animation underneath it. So let's go ahead, back to modeling. We're going to add a plane, scale it up. We're going to bring it over here. Put it at exactly -8 and exactly 40. Okay, there we go. Let's grab it with G, press Z to bring it up to about the level that we want it to be. Press Z again, and we're going to scale this a little bit more, make it a little bit bigger. And then I'm going to give it the gear texture. Here we are. Boom, look at that. Look at how nice. All right, now we've got a little floating gear platform. And I'm not really sure if it's the right size yet. I want it to be between 1 and 9 spaces. So I'm going to press Alt-H to bring everything back. And then I'm going to hit the top again. And we're going to size this up. It needs to be a little bit bigger, like that. I think that's good. There we go. Okay, and now anywhere where we've got a 9 space slot, like right here, we can put this platform into. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to select it. That's right. Got to switch to X-ray vision so I can select the whole thing. Going to go to top-down view. I'm going to press G, Shift Z, and there we go. We can slot that in right there. Guess we can we hold control? No, we don't want to hold control because we want it right there. Guess we could probably do 40 and 90 if we wanted to. And then I'm going to get out of the top-down view so that way we can... This time I'm just going to press Z and bring it down to about this level. And I can even do the Y so that I can see, make sure it's like pretty much level with this. There we go. And there we go. We've got this platform. Now that we've created this platform once, though, we can just start duplicating it. Because it is kind of floating in the middle of the air, it's not attached to the ground, and there is no problem if we start duplicating it and throwing it in as many places as we really feel like. So let's go ahead and do that. But before we do that, something that can make this a little bit easier is to go to the Data tab and add it to a vertex group. I'm just going to call this gear. And now we can assign this. And then we can just select this and deselect it whenever we want. The one problem I've noticed is that when we duplicate this, so to duplicate, I'm going to hold Shift and press D. Maybe I should save this before. And you can just put that right in the same folder as our exported Frogger map. Not a problem. All right, we've saved that. Now I'm going to duplicate this. Shift D. Boom, now we've got another one. And the one thing I've noticed about this is that it's going to also add this to our vertex group. And so I'm going to press Shift Z to keep it on the XY axis. I'll put it somewhere, maybe over here. I'm going to probably go to top-down view to really get it in the right spot. Okay, that looks good. And so if we want to remove this from the vertex group, you don't have to, but if you want to just have the one, we're just going to go ahead and remove that. So now if we click select again, it's just going to be this one. All right, and so now we can add more of these jammies. Let's go ahead and do that. Spruce up our map a little bit. Add some spinny platforms. One thing also when you're in the top-down view is that I don't think you have to press Shift Z because I believe it stays on the same Z axis no matter what. Yeah, actually I can move this around. You can see in the top right there that Z is not changing. All right. Put this one right here. Let's put another one right here. One nice thing about having a flat plane of lava is that all we have to do is make sure the camera doesn't go off this edge here. And if we do that, we don't actually need to put like the side of the map at all. That's not necessary. All right. What else here? Another thing we can do is... So one thing we can do is if, say, we put this platform here, duplicate it, and then leave a extra big gap here like so. That's going to leave room for one of our moving platforms to fill in this space. So it'll be a slightly different challenge than this one over here. And now let's see, how many frog locations do we kind of have at the moment? We have one over here, one here, one here, looks like, one here, and one here. That's 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we've got enough obstacles, I think, but we can spruce these different paths up a little bit if we want. So maybe right here, I feel like I want a little bit more action. And actually, you know what I want to do? I'm going to move you down to about here. And we'll make it so that you have to hit a switch to go this way. And then let's raise a platform over here. Yoink, 25, then 50. Then we're going to, now it gets a little tricky because if we go to the side view and do this, hold on, gotta switch to select box. We're gonna grab these, and we don't want to grab these. So we might just have to hide them to make it a little easier on ourselves. Hide, then go back, and now we can do this. And the other thing you can do once you start creating platforms is you can just select an existing one, and then automatically the correct texture will be selected, and you can just hit assign. There you go. And just be careful when you reset. If you've done any custom changes to the geometry you selected to assign to, that will be reset as well. So just be aware. So for example, let's say I can't having a hard time clicking this geometry. Let's take off the X-ray. All right, click that. So let's say, for example, I wanted this one to be upside down for whatever reason. And then I select all of these, and then I select this to assign it. These are not correct, and so I will go to U and hit reset, but then that will reset this one as well. So just be careful of that. It's gotten me quite a number of times. Okay, then we just need to do these. Assign. There we go. I'm going to do Alt-H now that we're done with that. There we go. We've got our little platform there. All right, so I think this is looking pretty good for a quick level. But there's one other thing about this level. There is normally a gold frog in this level. So maybe we find a way to add a sneaky frog somewhere in here. Okay, so I've got an idea that maybe we put the gold frog on a little hidden ledge that you won't be able to see, and with the camera facing slightly north, it'll kind of hide it. So let's say for this frog here, we end on another platform, and this also will help showcase how to extrude more complicated platforms. So, like so. I'm going to raise it up 25, raise it up another 25. But then we want to have a little hidey hole over here. So we're going to deselect these and raise this up a little bit more. I'm not sure if that's too high. Frogger has a super jump. If the platform is about level, then you can just regular jump. If it's higher, then you have to super jump. But at a certain height, Frogger can't even super jump up platforms. So I'm not entirely sure what that height is, but I believe a little bit shorter, like 22 height will work. So I don't want to extrude this to change it. I'm just going to switch back to select box. So I can press G and then Z to move it down a couple of spaces there. So that's much more likely to be in Frogger's super jump height. I should get the exact number at some point, but I do not have that at the moment. And then what we're going to actually do is extrude this one more time. Put it up 20-ish. Yeah, there we go. And I guess then we also need a way for Frogger to get back up, huh? So then let's extrude this, like so. There you go. And then we can also extrude this inwards, like this. I'm not sure if that is... Well, let's just go to wireframe, go top down, and then go to select. And there we now, we want to switch to, what is it? Y. Now we can line this up perfectly. Like that. Good enough. And so now we've got a little hidden alcove here. Very good. And we're going to select this. Select this. We're going to hide that so we can do this view and start changing them textures. Fine. Set. Then all of these. Just be that one. Assign. Reset. And now one of the things, because we extruded to the side here, this is not facing the correct way. No big deal. We can just go here, go to UV editing, rotate that up. The only problem is that the viewport is going to change. So we got to move it over. And I actually like these looking like that on the side there. So we'll keep that. Go back to modeling. Select these. And give ourselves some of these tops here. Okay, I'm gonna do Control or Alt H to bring those back. And there we go. Now we've got a hidden ledge that Frogger can find the gold frog in. Okay. Now that we've pretty much got our level ready to go, one thing else we need to add is the Froglet platform, is the Froglet spaces. So we're gonna just select those. 1, 2, 3. We're gonna go to this and assign. And then for the other two, we probably just want them to land on these. And so we select like this. And we'll do the same thing. Oh, yeah, there you go. Look at that. It already looks so nice because we did the cube projection on it. Okay, and there we go. We've got our 5 spaces, and I guess we could probably add this one as well. Why not? And our map is almost ready. We're not quite there because one thing we need to do is that by default, every platform is going to be jumpable. So Frogger can jump on it. And we don't want that for lava, because lava is, well, deadly, of course. You can edit this in FrogLord, but it is a little bit easier at the moment to do it in Blender. So I'm going to click our lava platform, and then I'm going to press Shift-G to select similar, and I'm going to select material. And this is a very useful trick to select multiple of the same thing instead of manually selecting it yourself. So now we have every single lava platform selected. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to switch to the spreadsheet. I'm going to go make this a little bigger. I'm going to go select faces. And these are special flags. You can see we have the material index, texture flags, and grid flags. The number 3 means that it's safe for Frogger to jump on. We don't want that. Instead, we want Frogger to die if he jumps into a lava square. So we're going to change this flag to 5. So we're going to go down to here to data. We're going to open the attributes, and then we're going to click on grid flags. Now I have this set up with a shortcut, but I believe you can go to mesh and then go down to set attribute. But I have it set to Alt X. I'm going to go here. We're going to click 5 and we're going to hit enter. And now you can see that all of those flags have been set to 5. So when Frogger jumps on them, he will lose life. Okay, one more thing I forgot about was that the grid flags need to be scrubbed from the sides of the platforms as well. So we're going to go ahead, grab all of those. Let's see, we can try area. That's not going to grab all of them though, yeah. Grabs a good amount that I can go material. That should grab all of them pretty much. Okay, we got them all now. And we're going to go Alt-X 0. We want to 0 that so that they won't be added as layers at all. It's a bit of a quirk with the extrude region tool, is that when you extrude a region, the grid flag gets copied from the source of the extrude. So since this is 5 here, if I extrude that, then the sides are going to have 5 as well. So just a quick footnote before we get to FrogLord proper. This is the grid editor, and this is what's going to happen if you don't zero out the sides. It's going to add extra layers for those polygons, which kind of ruins the workflow a little bit in making sure that everything is correct, because now we've got 5 layers when really there's just 1 layer on this map for all these different polygons that we have added here. Now what the grid flags are, so 3 is going to be safe, 5 is going to be deadly, and then 0 is going to be none. You don't really see the numbers inside FrogLord. Those are just the internal numbers, and the only reason we're doing this in Blender and not in FrogLord is just because it's a little bit faster in Blender right now. But at some point in the future, it will be faster to change these flags in FrogLord. Oh yes, one other thing. I guess we can spruce up the map a little bit by adding some more textures. So, like this. Let's do that one. Put one of these here. Maybe that one can be this. Boom. This one also, and maybe that one. And now you can obviously do all the way around, but we're going to have our camera pointing slightly north, so we won't really see the back side of these platforms. You might see the west or east side a little bit, so we can throw a couple of those in there. Now I want to change the color of the lava, but I only want to change the color of the lava. I don't want to change the color of all these platforms. So go click on the lava, do Shift G, do material. That'll grab all the lava, and then I can invert that selection and grab everything but the lava, and then press H to hide that. And we can go back to Vertex Paint and get some yellow. Get some, and let's lower the radius of the brush a bit. And now we can, okay, but, and then maybe not the strength of. And there you go. Now we can paint just the lava. Some red. Get some orange. I think we need more red. And get some more yellow. Just kind of doing whatever. Honestly, maybe the strength should be even less. There we go, that looks more natural. That looks like lava. All right. Here we go. And then we can unhide these. And if we go back, there we go, we've just got the lava colored. And now you could do the reverse of that and just color the platforms if you want. But a thing to note is that the vertices of the lava and the platforms share. So if you paint this vertex, it's going to paint a little bit on these platforms as well. And you could get around this by detaching the platforms from the lava, but that's going to increase your vertex count, and it's not as straightforward to do that. Okay, there you go. And now you can see that we have our vertex colors, our shading applied to the map. And in fact, if we go to object mode, we can really preview how it's going to look in the final product. And I think that looks pretty good. And if you ever want to make any more changes, you can just switch back and forth at any time. Say I want to make this first platform blue. I have to reduce this radius a little bit. Boom, there we go. And then we can switch back, and there we go. It's blue now. But we're not going to use that for our final product, of course. Now, one thing to note, let's say I wanted to remove the tail end of this platform here. It's actually kind of difficult to do that because all 4 of these are connected. If I grab this one face and try and move it down, it's going to drag the rest of the polygons along with it. If I wanted to remove the whole platform, that's not as bad. I can just move the entire thing, and then what I can do is just delete these faces here. Like this. I get the select tool, and then delete faces. And then I can just turn this into lava, and that should be pretty good. Adding is also not terrible, but not great either. So let's say I wanted to add a section right here to this platform. You're going to again use the extrude tool and do exactly the same thing we've been doing. And this actually would work. If I were to just do this, that would work. But now you've got, if I can get into here, these extra geometry polygons in here that you don't really need. And so if you're really being optimal about saving your polygons, you would remove these faces as well. Remove face. Remove face. But then an interesting thing is that these polygons are not connected because they weren't extruded with the other parts of the platform, right? You can see here, as I move this side to side, they're not connected. And so one thing you can do is connect them. And all we have to do for that is select these faces, go to the face select. But then, okay, this is important. You have to switch back to vertex select for this, because otherwise it crashes Blender for whatever reason. And then you can hit M, merge by distance. And that's going to remove your vertexes. You know, here it says only one. That's because I didn't select this vertex. So it doesn't know to merge this one. And so you can go unselected as well, and it will remove those. And now if we select these, oh, right. The other thing that you might have to do is increase the merge distance. Boom, 1. One thing to note is that given the size of these polygons for Frogger, you can do a merge distance of about 1 meter, and it's not a problem at all. There we go. And now these are connected. Let's say for the sake of argument, though, you wanted to remove something from a platform. Well, then you would switch to the Rip tool, select the edge that you want to separate, and then just, okay, if I could figure out how to make this work. How do you... There we go. Don't totally quite understand the Rip tool yet, but then you do that, and you kind of just want to, really weird, you really just want to put it back exactly into the same space, pretty much. Things don't have to be exactly. And then you would go and say, remove these, delete the faces, and then you can just drag this down. We didn't didn't rip there. We need to rip that vertex. There we go. Okay. Now we can drag this face all the way down. We can switch to vertex M, collapse by distance. Boom, now it's part of the whole thing. And then we just need to fill these. So important note is if I did this, this is not going to work because this polygon is defined by six vertices. The only faces FrogLord can render are with 3 or 4 vertices. So instead of doing that, first fill in this face and then this face. Also, I need to merge that by distance to get that. And oh yeah, and the fill is F. Then once we have that, now we can do this, that, reset those, and then we can also do that. And there we go. Now this platform is lacking a piece. So yeah, the minimal geometry edits after the fact are ideal, but they can be done if needed be. There are a couple of limitations when editing the level in Blender. Only polygons attached to the level object will get exported, and really you should not be editing this group of items at all. Anytime we add polygons, anything to this map, make sure it is added directly into this level object. In addition, we don't want to be adding any other textures here. You can use this no texture, but don't be adding new materials and adding more textures because it just won't work. Only use the ones that are here. If you want to change textures, do that within FrogLord, not within Blender. And one little extra warning about UVs, make sure they are not out of the bounds here. If you do something like this, that's going to cause problems for Frogger. So make sure all of these vertices are within the texture. Okay, and once you are happy with the edits to your level, you can just go ahead and hit save. And then we can go ahead and export Frogger map. Boom. And we're done. All right, folks, so here we are in FrogLord. Our Blender map is finished, so we're going to import it back in. I've opened the clean MWD file since we haven't made any changes to it yet. So we're going to scroll down to Volcano 1 map. And now, interesting note here, if we do import FFS on the clean file and then open the editor, there we go, our map is imported, but we actually have all the entities from the previous map. And sometimes this can be useful. If you want to use these as a starting point, you'll have all of the paths as well. I'm going to select all. So here's all the paths on the original level. So maybe you want to just reuse this one. You know, it might be a good idea in certain circumstances to start with the map, but with all of the previous entities. But we're going to go ahead and do this from scratch so that you all can see. So let's go ahead and clear the map again. 40 by 40. And then we're going to re-import our file here. All right, and now when we open it, we will have just our geometry from the Blender file and nothing else. So the first thing we're going to want to do is enter the form grids for our objects. We want to enter form grids for the frogs. We want to enter form grids for platform 1 and for platform 2. FrogLord version 1.0.0 will actually assign a default form value for each entity automatically. You may want to modify forms, so I will explain a little bit about how they work. But if you're just starting out learning Frogger modding, hopefully you won't have to mess around with these value fields. So I'm going to go ahead and import these manually and skip over the more mundane details. So this first form is going to be for our frogs. So now that we have a form for the frogs, I just copied this in. Let's go ahead and add a frog. So by default, it's going to select the red frog. We're going to add him to the grid somewhere. And so you can just kind of scroll along until you get to the place you want it to be. Let's put the red one over here. I kind of like it. It's kind of arbitrary. There is some sense to how the frogs are placed in the main game, but the placement commonly breaks the rules that it seems to follow. So really just put them wherever you want. But now one cool thing about this, as I'm placing this frog, I can kind of place it in the corner if I really want to, but really you kind of want it in the middle of the square here. And so I can hold down Control, and now it's going to snap that frog right into place on that square. And even though he's a little bit in the ground here, he'll be fine, but we can raise him a little bit if we feel like it. It's not that big of a deal. Entities take priority over polygons, so even if this frog is in the ground like this, it will still fully render above this polygon. It has to be quite far below it before the game will decide, okay, maybe I should render the polygon in front of the frog. And then we're going to go ahead and rotate this frog to face that way, because we want him to be looking over there as we're coming in. And we have to select our first form grid. This should be automatically assigned for you, but real quick, what forms do, entities have a model and code that tells them how to act, but forms are for how Frogger interacts with them. The crocodile, for example, is 4 squares wide, and so it has form data that says the first 3 squares are safe, but the last square, the head, is dangerous. That's the default functionality. But you could, for example, swap it around and maybe make the tail dangerous and the head safe by changing the form data. The form data will also tell the game which entities are collectible frogs, so the red frog. The red frog has entity data that says checkpoint. So yeah, I guess you could make the red frog deadly if you really wanted to. But let's go ahead and add all of our frogs, why not? And really quick, I'm going to change this to exactly 90 because I don't like all those extra numbers there. There we go. Now he's perfectly aligned. And now that we have one frog, we can go to Add Entity and copy all the data from that frog. So if I place this here, we can see that it is still using form 0. And then I'm going to change this to just say checkpoint 4. Or is that the blue frog? That's fine. Okay, and we need to rotate him up. So I'm going to make that exactly 0. And there we go. And we can add another entity. Let's put the green frog over there. So I think that's checkpoint 1, yeah. And we need to flip him around. And now, oh no, we can't flip this frog. Hey, let me get closer. We can't flip this frog entirely around. What shall we do? Well, you can actually go into here and put in 180, and it will automatically adjust it so that it's facing this way. And the editor does that by switching the pitch and the roll around. Let's add another froggy. And then we're going to add another one. And then we also need to add our gold frog as well. And that one is going to be Gen Gold Frog. There you are. All right. Now all of our frogs are in place. Let's start adding platforms. All right. So here's our start, and we're going to go out this way. And one of the things I really like to do when I'm making custom maps is make sure I have multiple options. So we don't want to force people down one path every single time. Let's give them 2. Now, admittedly, this map isn't too open-ended, but didn't want to make it too complicated for tutorial because very open maps it's harder to balance them. So this is the form for our spiky platform, and it's important that we select player reaction safe so that the game knows that when I am on this form, that when I am on this grid, Frogger is going to be safe. And now let's go ahead and add the other platform as well. And again, there will be easier ways to edit this. I'm just copying from the original map. And now we need one more form, and that is the button. But we actually don't need anything in here because the button will activate when we jump over it, and we don't need to tell the game, hey, the button is safe. We can just say, okay, button be there. Now, before we add those platforms, though, we need a path. And so any entity that moves from a start to an end point is going to need a path. And so let's add a path. A very simple one we can do to start off with is a line. So I'm going to add a line segment. And now it's going to place by default somewhere in the map, but we don't really care because what we can do is hit this select button for the start of the line and say, I want to start here. And then I can select the end and say, I want to end here. The only thing is the platform, the path is all the way down here in the lava. And so what we're going to do is bring that up. And an easy way we can do that is with the move path, which will move the entire path. And since we already know that our platforms are height 50, we can just enter in -50 here. And it's a little bit different, the transition from Blender to here. I'll make a note of that, is that Y is going to be Z from Blender, and then Z is going to be Y from Blender. I got that a little confused earlier. I'll have a footnote. And then also the Y is negative for whatever reason. So now we've got our path for our platform. So let's go ahead and add it. I'm going to add a new entity. I'm going to put that just anywhere. Don't really matter. And then I'm going to switch it to vol, believe it is platform 2. Yes. And we have to select the form we made for it. So that's form number 2. And then we need to select the path ID, which is 0. There we go. Now it is all along our path. But we're not done yet for this platform because these platforms use buttons. So we need to add a button so that this platform will only move once we jump on the button. So let's go ahead, add another entity. And once we can copy this platform, we can actually add it to the path right away, and you won't have to manually enter it, so that's nice. But we do want to switch this to a button. And now you may be tempted to use vol switch. Don't pick that one. It's actually vol color trigger that we want. And once we have that, we can select and stick it somewhere. Let's put it right here. There we go. And now we have to change a couple more things. So this switch has an entity ID of 6. So down here, we're going to have to change the trigger to 6 and the trigger type to freeze. This means if the button's off, this platform is going to be frozen. And then once we touch the button, then this will start moving. But we're still not done because we have to set up some things with the platform here. So we want no movement to tell the platform not to move by default. And then we also want align to world. And what this is going to do is make it so the platform is always facing the same direction. It's not really an issue when we're going on a straight line, but if we start doing more complicated paths for this platform, then if we don't have this checked, it's going to rotate around and it will rotate Frogger with it. But if we have this checked, no matter where this platform goes, no matter what direction it moves, Frogger will always be facing the same direction. And that makes it a little bit easier to navigate this one. And we also have to change the end of path behavior to reverse. If it's restart, then it's just going to go to the end and then come back. And actually, I can show these off. So if I have restart and go back to the paths and hit this, tick path runners, we can now see our platform moving along. And honestly, that's a little slow. So maybe I speed it up a bit. Still a little slow. There we go. That's a little bit better, but you can see with the restart, it's going all the way back. So let's untick this again so we can edit everything. Go back to entities and change it to reverse. And now, oh, wrong thing. And now we can see that the platform is going to bounce back and forth. And that's what we want it to do. That's what these platforms do. Okay. Now let's create another path for our spinny platforms. I want some spinny platforms to go here and make like a little loop. So I'm going to add a path. And we're going to start with an arc this time. There we go. And again, it's going to spawn over there, but we don't really care because we're going to just scroll down and pick our start and center. And so I want it to start right here on the line. So if I just pick this, it's going to pick there. But if I hold down Control, I can actually get it to be right on the line there, which is what we want. And then for center, we want it right in the middle here. Boom, there you go. We can toggle this display so you can see where it is. And now we've got this nice half arc that will be going up like this. And you can change the arc length, of course, if you want it to be longer or shorter. But 0.5 is perfect for us. And now let's go ahead and add a line. And it's going to automatically append it to the end of the arc. So that makes the start easy. But let's get the end where it needs to be. We're going to again hold Control so that I can do that. And oh my goodness, I forgot my little clicky thing. Yeah, sorry about that. I got it now. Okay, go back to the path. All right, now that we've got our line, we're going to go ahead and add another arc and do the same thing there. Select the start's already good. So let's select the center, hold Control. There we are. And then finally, we need to add one more line. And again, the start is good. And now we actually don't need to select the N, although we could. But just for example, let's go back to the beginning of our arc. We're going to copy the start, and then we're going to paste it to the end. So now it exactly starts where it ends. And again, though, it's in the lava, so we need to raise it up a little bit. So let's do that. -50. And I have to hit enter to apply this change anytime I edit a box. Alternatively, you can also press tab. But yeah, if you just enter the number and then navigate away, it's going to be green and it won't save it. So make sure you do that. All right, it's got to be negative. All right, and now this path is ready to go. So let's add ourselves an entity. So we're going to add it. There we are. And I'm going to switch this to platform 1. And there we are. It's one of those spiky boys. And this one we want to be restart. Because when it makes a full loop, it is actually going to end where it started. And so restarting it is just going to keep it moving along. If we choose reverse, then it's going to get to the end of the path and then just switch direction. And we do not want that. We're also going to add a second one here. And then we're going to want them about halfway from each other. So here we can see the halfway number. So I'm going to just put in 89,125. And then for this one, we can just do 178.25. Boom. There we go. We've got our platform moving around. All right, so now I'm going to add a couple of more platforms. Maybe I'll speed it up such that we can grab ourselves this red frog. So let me go ahead and do that. Add a path. We're going to put that down here. Okay, really quickly, I want to add here that these gear platforms, you can just do a circle. So I could just select here, and then select here, and then make it 1, and give this -50, and that could work. But the actual game turns this into an arc, line, arc, line, arc, line, and I think that's just to make it a little easier to hop onto whatever platform you're hopping onto. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And so in that case, we are going to do start right on the line here, center, I gotta get in there, right in between here. We're going to do a 0.25 arc here. And then we're going to add a line, put the end of that right here. And just do that 4 more times, basically. So. And okay, wow, that was a lot of work. I don't want to do that again for each of these gear platforms. Well, turns out I do not have to. I can just hit clone path, and then it's going to make a copy that I can just move around wherever using the move all tool. Very convenient. There we go. Get that about there, and then I can actually check this path to line it up exactly, so that's got to be 40. And then this one, unfortunately, we're just going to have to I'm just going to hope it's 160, yeah? Does that look right to you? Yes, I think that's totally correct. Let's go ahead and add some spinny boys to our thing here. Okay, so it doesn't really matter where they are at the moment because we're going to normalize that. So I'm going to put that at 0, and then I'm going to put that at 57.125. There we go. Now they're perfectly balanced. All right, and let's finish up over here. Now we have to change this button. We have to add all 4 of these entities onto the button so that it will move all 4 when we press it. Let's do that. So we're going to do 15, tab, 16, tab, 17, tab, 18. Enter. Yes, that's all 4. Okay, very good. So now we should be able to get to the red frog. But there's one thing I want to do, and that is check how our paths are doing. So we're going to hit this. And there we go. We can see them all running, and we want to maybe adjust these a little bit. Like, for example, this path number 3, I feel like these are going a little too fast here. So let's slow them down a little bit. That is the first spinny platform after all. We don't need it to be too crazy for the first one. This one can probably be a little bit slower as well. Maybe we make it a little bit faster, though, than the other platform because we don't want the player to wait too long for these platforms to get over here. This one also seems a little too fast for the very, very first platform that we're going to be going on. There we go. All right, maybe a little bit faster. Okay, and these ones also seem quite a bit fast. All right, let's do 1.5. 1.5. Let's change them all to 1.5, see how that does. In fact, it might be interesting to make this one a little bit faster. Let's untick and tick again to see how it looks from the start. And I kind of like it, but it still feels a little bit wacky. Because you're going to be jumping from platform to platform here, it's a little harder than, say, this one, because you're jumping from static to platform back to static. So maybe we slow these down a little bit more here. All right, let's see how it does this time. And I kind of like that a little bit more. But maybe, you know what I'm thinking here, actually, is that this path needs to be a little bit longer. Let me do that. So select, I'm going to select this right here, and then we're just going to move it up to -50. All right. There we go. I like that a lot more. That's very good. And now we should, if we did everything correctly, be able to get to the red frog. And so this is a very important part of the process that is not required, but I strongly recommend you do this, is prototype early. We've got all these programmed, but we need to make sure they work. We do not want to complete this entire map just to find out there is a critical flaw with something, and we have to redo everything. So let's go ahead. I'm just going to untick this just to be safe. We're going to hit escape, and then we're going to save. I already am in the edited folder, but I recommend you have a separate clean and edited folder. So we're going to go overwrite the edit. And here we go. It's going to start saving our entire map. I'm going to skip how to load up Frogger because it's going to be different depending on if you have PSX and PC. But really quick, just so you know, I have a ISO of Frogger that I double click to mount onto a drive, and then I go ahead and click on the application.exe to run it. All right, here we go. We've loaded in. Let's go down to Scorching Switches, and hopefully... I forgot something. Thankfully, this is not too bad. Just open up our map again, and we can actually see where Frogger is going to spawn. What we need to do is go to the Baked Mapped Geometry, click Edit Collision Grid, and then we're going to click on our little target. I will explain this in a second. And we can see here that it is on stack 21.8. So now I can go to the general level settings. We're already on 21, so we just put 8. And there we go. Frogger is now starting in the correct spot. Okay, and this time we have loaded correctly. Let's see if everything works. So I'm going to go ahead and hit this button. Boom. It is moving. Can we jump on it? Yes, we did that correctly. Oh, but something is messed up here. See? This platform is not moving. We can jump on it, though. And also, Frogger is a little too low. Wonder what's going on there. I'll have to take a look. The form data is probably wrong. This is a good way to explain. These platforms are taller than the other ones, so we want the height to be a little bit more, so that way Frogger's actually sitting on top of it. No matter, we just open the editor back up, and let's take a click on these. And yes, we are using all the settings from these platforms, which are a little bit different. We want form 1 for those, and we don't want no movement, because these platforms move on their own. And that's exactly what I was saying about prototyping early. Now we have to change every single one of these. Could you imagine if we had the entire map completed and had to redo all of those? So let me just make sure. So let's go ahead and save again. Okay, let's see how we did this time. We already know how this button works. There we go. And look at that. Platform is moving now. Good. All right, this one's working. Still think that is a little too fast. There we go. And let's see if we can't grab the red frog. Oh, almost dropped there. But we got it. There you go. Looking good. We got ourselves our first frog in our custom map. Awesome. Now we just need to do 4 more. There is one thing I would like to show off though before we get back to the editor, and that is if you jump onto this platform, you're gonna fall right through it. What gives? Well, if you remember from our editing, this platform was created from scratch, out of nothing. So it doesn't have a collision grid already assigned to it. So these polygons are not already assigned to a collision grid. So let's go ahead and do that. So what we're going to do is going to go to Edit Collision Grid. And now we have our grid highlighted, depending on if something is safe to jump on or deadly to jump on. And we can click on those in here to see all of that in the grid editor. So we can see these platforms are safe. But if we click on any lava, they're deadly. But notice how this platform doesn't have any coloring, and that's because these polygons have not been assigned to the collision grid yet. So what we're going to want to do is click here and see that our blue is directly under the platform. And then we're going to make sure we're on layer 2 and hit add square. You can pick any of these. I'm just going to pick the top left one. And boom, now we've got a layer here, but we need to set it to safe, so that we can actually jump on it. And if I move this off, now I can see that there is a green little coloring there. So we're going to do that for all these. I'm going to speed that up. Okay, I believe I got them all, but if you notice, they are still not selected as safe. What I can do is control click all of them. Well, gotta make sure I don't pick the wrong squares here. And set them all to safe all at the same time. Click off to verify that indeed all of them have green but red below. Okay, and there's one more thing I want to do with these platforms, is I want these gears to spin. Because they have an animation, and they need to be spinning for us. So, we're going to go down to Map Animations. We're going to add an animation. Going to select Texture. I'm going to add the first texture, 24, and then add the second texture, 25. And I believe the frames per texture for this animation is 2. So we'll do 2, but you can change that around if you like. And then we need to apply animation to clicked polygons. So that we can click all these and add them so that they'll actually animate. And there we go. They're all set now. And if we hit preview, we can see that they are all spinning. Excellent. Very, very good. Okay. And so we made a couple of collision changes, so we want to make sure that works. So I'll add one more path to a frog, and then let's go ahead and test that one frog. Let's do purple. Okay, so one thing is maybe we want the entities on this path to spin the other way. We're tired of spinning counterclockwise. We need them to spin clockwise. Well, we can go ahead and flip this path, and now it's just going to go the reverse direction. So nice. Not really super useful for this platform, but when we go up to here, we're going to want those to be spun around a little bit. Make them interesting. But that should be it. We should be able to get to the purple frog now. So let's go ahead and test. Oh, hold on a second. We want this platform to be faster. Yeah. Let's see. Since this is static to static, it can afford to be a little bit faster. Whereas this one, when we do this one, we're going to have to slow it down a little bit because otherwise that's going to be a crazy jump to make. Okay, let's give it a shot and see if all of our platforms are working here. Let's go get that blue frog. Wahee. All right, that platform is moving. Oh, see, there you go. We have it on reverse, and we don't necessarily want that because it's on a complete circuit. But that's fine. We can change that later. Can we jump on this platform? Oh, look at that. It's working. All right, and then we got the big jump. Well, that wasn't too difficult. And let's see. Yep, these platforms are only super hoppable. That's great. So we did that right. And now let's go ahead and get ourselves this gold frog. Whoop. Whoa. Now, interestingly, the way the collision works, we should probably be able to... Yeah. Oh. So that's one thing to take a note of. Okay, so first thing is pretty easy. We want to change this to a restart. That one's straightforward. That's done. And the other thing, though, is that when the camera was over here, it did touch the black, and we don't necessarily want that. So we can add a camera zone. Going to go ahead and add one of those. Going to check this resize regions, and now we have access to the resize tool down here. We're going to go and move that over here like so. And so whenever we're in this region, we can change how the camera is facing. I would just play around with this. We go to camera control. If we go to general settings, we can kind of just copy the camera source and target here to match. And so what we want here is we want the camera to be not as high up and not as far back and not as angled back. So that way we don't see that black, and we'll see if that works or not. Okay, and now this should be, there we go, perfect. And let's see how our camera zone is doing. Perfect, look at that. Now we cannot see the black part. Oh. And we also did that. That's not good either. Now, to fix what happened there, real quick, I'll just mention this. Maybe I'll put it in, maybe I won't. To fix what happened there, we can do something that's a little hacksy, but it will work, is if we remove this square, now the only possible jump here is here. So if we try and jump over here and we don't reach this one, it's not going to find any other collision grid. And so it will block Frogger from jumping. All right, and now that we've fixed those problems, the main thing is going to be just adding the rest of the entities in here. So let's go ahead and finish this level. Boom. Now it's really fast, but since the platforms line up, it's actually an easier jump. If they were going the reverse direction, however, it would be a much more difficult jump. Now we need to spruce up the level a little bit with some bugs. So let's just pick an entity, add it here, doesn't really matter, and then we're going to pick Gen bonus fly green. Oh, I don't know what the form for this thing is. Where are you? I need a form for this. What is the form for this? And why is it not showing? We gotta figure that one out, I guess. Hold up. I gotta get the form for this. Okay, I guess it just works now. I guess reload the map if your bug is blank. Alright. So now we can add some bugs for some points. So every second in-game is going to be 100 points worth. And that is calculated because when you grab a frog, you get 100 points for each second left on the clock. So if you want your bug to be worth it, you have to take that into account. So if I put this bug, right on the main path, like here, there's like no way that you can miss it. And again, you can kind of put it in the ground a little bit because it will prioritize over it will prioritize over the polygons. Sometimes I just like to lift them up a little bit. But this bug being here is only worth 50 points, but that's fine because you will probably be going this way anyway. However, if we want to go out of the way a bit, let's say, copy this entity, and we move it all the way over here. You're only getting this bug if you jump on this platform and wait. So, we can up the points a bit. Let's make it worth 5 seconds. Or how about 1,000? Why not? Alright, we can just start adding these. Again, since when we add an entity, it copies the previous data. All of this information should already be correct. We just have to move it around and change the score. There you go. Okay. So you have to jump over here, not just immediately go for the frog if you want that. It's good to have a couple of dead areas in your map so that you can place bugs and extra bonuses. Like, I don't see any good place to place an extra life, really. Okay, there we go. Now we've got some bugs on the map for some extra interest. Some things we can do while we're hopping around. And there's one more thing I think to go over. And that's the lighting. So you might be thinking, we already added vertex shading to these in Blender. What is lighting for? Well, lighting is going to be for your entities. These entities, Frogger included, are all on separate lighting than the actual level geometry. And so if I add, or maybe change one of these from a different color, or to a different color rather, say orange, now you can see that everything here is colored orange, or colored blue, or colored green. But the thing is, you're going to want a vertex shade to match whatever lighting you have here. So yeah, we can make all of these green, we can make all of these purple, but it's not going to match very much the existing lighting, which is just white. We have white lighting on all the, which is base. We have base lighting on all of the platforms. It's only coloring on the lava, so I'm going to go with just regular lighting for this. Maybe make it a little bit darker because it is kind of bright. But otherwise, I think that's good. But just so you know, if you're making your custom map and you need some more moody lighting, and why are the platforms white while everything else is dark, you have to go here and change that here. So something to keep in mind when you're doing your Blender edits is to match the lighting with the entities with the geometry. And I think now our level is complete. Obviously, we have to test it and make sure there is nothing terribly wrong with it, but our design is done. Look at that. Let's go ahead and give it a run. All right, here we go. Let's give it a shot. Now, unfortunately, we won't be able to collect the gold frog again, but it is what it is. Oh, and I have some black back there. That's fine. We're going to ignore that for now. Let's do it. Let's try and get them in normal order. Green frog, orange frog, purple frog, blue frog, and then finally red frog. There we go. Ooh, that's a fast-moving platform. All right, green is up here. Those are really fast platforms, but shouldn't be too bad. There we go. And now we just have to hop onto the right one. Whoa. Very good. That is really fast, actually. Notice the bonus going up 100 for every second we still have. So just keep that in mind. All right, let's get orange next. Whoa, let's get that. Oh, got that. 1,000 points. That's good pointage. Let's hit this. There we go. And ooh, I almost hurt myself there. A little square. Let's go up. Oh, get that bug. And whoa, this is awesome. All right, I'll skip that so you don't have to just wait for the score to finish. Now we need purple. Purple's gonna be this way, right? Yes. All right. Let's go over here. Let's grab this bug. Whoa. 200 points. Not sure that was worth it, but that's why you tweak these things. And there we are, purple frog. Wahee. All right, next is blue. Blue. Get our bluey boy. Okay, and I gotta press that button. A little tricky here. Gotta press that button. Kinda. Whoa, we gotta go left to go right. Yes. Now that's also kind of fast. All right. And ooh, I don't like this. This kind of. All right, we got it. All right, these ones are going. Oh, that was actually perfect timing. I could have jumped there. All right, we got it. We're good. We're awesome. Then let's go grab that one and boom. Very good. So I'm actually noticing here that when we jump onto these spiky platforms, Froglet immediately snaps to them because they are kind of higher than the actual because they are actually higher than the geometry. So we maybe even want to go higher than 50, or you could lower this platform a little bit as well. Just a little thing I noticed. All right, and let's go ahead and get our last frog. Ooh, close. And we are done. Look at that. What a great little level we just made. So yeah, obviously we could improve that level a little bit, but that's going to be it for the tutorial. I hope you found this helpful. Special thanks to KneeSnap for creating the FrogLord editor and working together with the community to get a bunch of features added to the editor that have been super helpful. And now I would say the editor is in a pretty good place. If you want to try and make your own Frogger map, go ahead. And so if you've been wanting to learn Blender and are willing to put in some time to learn a couple of these functions, then I would say this is a great game to learn it in. You just have to understand the collision grid stuff, which is a little bit strange. But even so, eventually the FrogLord editor will have capabilities to edit the geometry inside the editor itself, and we'll be able to make maps without going to Blender. But the fastest way to get custom map editing up and running is to connect FrogLord to Blender for now. So keep your eyes and ears peeled, because FrogLord is only going to get better from here, and easier and faster to create levels within it. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you liked this tutorial. Let me know what I can do better for the future, and please have a very good day. Bye-bye.